To order, the Brown County Commission, January 16th.
Commissioner Sutton, would you lead us in pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. First thing on the agenda is the Cleveland rezone, the first reading.
Application has been made by Ryan Dell on behalf of Deborah Cleveland to the Brown County Board of Commissioners for a change in zoning. The property is lots 1 and 2, Cleveland First Edition in the northeast of 35, 12463, and this would be going from ag preservation to mini ag. This is first reading.
I would entertain a motion to accept the first reading of the Cleveland.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Commissioner Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion will carry. We have just a couple minutes before our next item. At this time, I would like to read a letter that the Commission has drafted regards to our assessment of ag property. And this letter is going to be addressed to the Department of Revenue, to Mr. Howdy Shell. And this letter is basically going to state, on behalf of the Brown County Commission and the Brown County Equalization Office, we respectfully request that a review of the methods used in assessing agricultural land in Brown County be examined by your department. We would especially be interested in your thoughts regarding neighborhood assessments. Thank you in advance for your consideration and request, and we look forward to hear your evaluation report on behalf of the Brown County and our citizens. Sincerely signed by the Chair, Doug Feldheim, and the Interim Director, Gene Lusky. So that's just be a little proactive.
I would make a motion that we approve the
Second.
chairman's signature.
Very appropriate. Thank you.
Motion to approve the letter sent to the Department of Revenue. A motion by Sutton, second by Hanson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion will carry.
Not quite 9:50, so.
We actually got just a couple of short things. We got about, well, here they are. We can go a couple minutes early.
Right on time.
Sure. How's it going?
Good. Hi there. Thank you, ma'am. There's some big cones there beside you. Look at these. Okay, you went first.
Good morning, Sheila and Patty.
Good morning.
We have the next on the agenda is to discuss some tax issues.
When we were processing the new tax bills, Patty came across a problem, and so I'm not exactly sure what to do. On the second page, you'll see a copy of the deed where the gentleman purchased both lots 1 and 2 of a description there, and as well as a mobile home, which was put on the deed and shouldn't have, but that's neither here nor there. And so from that point on, he got a tax notice for lot 1, Garrett. And all of a sudden this year when we were processing the tax bills, Patty found this one in his name and had 5 years of back taxes, and she knew that she always waited on him, and there would be no reason he'd have 5 years of back taxes. Well, come to find out, the county assessor never transferred the one lot. So now all of a sudden they found the mistake, nobody told us, but when the tax notices come out here, now we have 5 years back taxes against this gentleman, and he was never given a tax notice, he was never given an assessment notice to contest his value, and now all of a sudden, here we are with 5 years of back taxes, and we don't think it's right.
I see the amounts varied. The first 3 years didn't
Yeah,
amount much. The last 2 years.
They jacked up his value a lot, and there again, like I say, he wouldn't have had a chance to contest that because he never got any notice. Granted, it was his legal description, but he relied on us, give him his notice. The assessor's office only gave him the one piece, and I don't know how closely he read the legal description. He should have read it closer, but it still doesn't seem right when we're required to give him a tax bill and he's required to get an assessment notice, that now all of a sudden 5 years down the road, we come back with a bill for 5 years of taxes. Then it went to the company, it was repossessed from somebody, it went through Wells Fargo, and then went through a clearinghouse. So the tax bill for those 4 years went to Federal National Mortgage, is that right? It's kind of a clearinghouse for Wells Fargo's foreclosures, and most of the time they come back mail returned, but we would not know anywhere to forward it because, you know, it says Federal National Mortgage. So I just have a problem with trying to send him a bill with 5 years of back taxes. It just doesn't seem right.
Has he been contacted in regards to this issue?
No,
I guess at
because we
this
just
point,
found it.
I guess at this point, I guess we rely on the other commission or their thoughts. Can we get the assessor and get him involved and ask, you know, is there a way to abate some of this? Or, I mean, I think there's some tax due,
Well, I
but
think the remedy for abatement comes in the fact that we made a mistake. I mean, there is that provision when a mistake is made. I mean, we can't just abate people's taxes, but this was an error, and
but he actually knew he owned the two properties.
that's
So-
what I'm saying. He's not 100% out of it, but
Right.
I guess it depends on how you think about it. If you think you bought a piece of property and you own it, and would you study the legal description to know that it, you know, was not all of what you had, got a separate bill then for the mobile home, and that was on the deed, and it just seems to me like it's just not the right way.
I think you're right. I think that the assessor's office needs to have a discussion with him and work on an abatement and an agreement. I really do. It's not fair to him, but like you said, you know, he's not completely clear either on
Yeah.
it, but it
It
happens.
comes
This
to
is
some-
unusual.
If I own two pieces of property and I got a tax bill on one and never got one the other one, I mean, there's some fault on both parties.
Right.
And I don't
Yeah.
think he's off 100%, but I don't think the assessors, you know, should be either blamed. I think that it should be worked together between the two parties and yourself, and I don't know how you want to instigate that, if you want to have the assessor start the process.
Yeah,
or
I'd
if
like to have them explain what happened. And like I said, part of it that's really frustrating for us too is that they don't tell us when they do this. You know, you find a mistake, own up to it. Let us know, you know, to make us discover this stuff on our own it's just kind of disheartening. And we've had this conversation before. We
So
know
when does the
mistakes
assessor's
get made.
office find this?
I don't know, they wouldn't tell us. We just all of a sudden found the bill this year, so it was
Do
sometime...
they know about it?
Well, yeah, when we went down and asked them, they said,
So they found out when you found it?
no,
Oh,
they
they
had
knew.
changed it already.
They had,
And that's
okay.
how we found the 5 years back taxes then, but they didn't tell us when they found it, so we could have had a conversation.
he receive the one that just went out?
No,
No,
we
we
held
kept
those
it yet,
until
because we
I
didn't know what to
had an answer
do.
on this one.
I think you're right.
I think we get with Gene interim,
Okay,
and we ask how he feels it should be handled along with yourself, and I think we have to get this individual involved. At least give him an explanation of what happened.
yeah.
And I guess if there has to be a certain amount of abatement at this time, I guess we look at everybody's side, and we decide at that point in time.
Okay, all right.
Does that seem fair to?
Yep, because we just didn't want to...
Good thing you picked up on that.
Patty
Thank you.
is so observant of everything.
We always,
Don't count on that every time.
Why is it like this with me? Yeah, right.
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Looks like we have a few minutes, Max. Would you want to go through a few of your things?
The minutes from the joint city-county of January 8th and the general of January 9.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move.
second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Hanson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claims.
Move, second.
Moved
Oh,
by-
other than the one that we pulled, right?
Yeah, that one, right.
Okay.
Okay. Moved by Kipley, second by Hanson. All in favor of approving claims?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The HR report.
Move. Second.
Moved by Kipley, second by Sutton to approve the HR report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
There's a completed contract for the operation of the clubhouse by Aberdeen Hockey Association. This is from the finalization of the RFP requested later last year.
And that is a 3-year, right?
Yes.
Yes, 18, 19, and 20.
I would move it.
Second.
Moved by Kipling, seconded by Sutton to approve the clubhouse concessions agreement with the hockey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Fourth quarter interest statement presented by the treasurer.
Move. Second.
Moved by Hanson, seconded by Kipling to approve the fourth quarter interest statement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry.
Auditor's report of account.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, seconded by Hanson to accept the auditor's report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Abatements.
Move. Second.
Moved by Kipling, seconded by Hanson to approve the abatement. I think there was just one in there, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
It says abatements here, but it's just one of them.
Oh, okay.
All in. Did I have
You
it?
took, yeah, Kipling Hanson.
Okay, you're ahead of me. Lost my train of thought. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The drone insurance renewal.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, seconded by Hanson to approve the drone insurance renewal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Every year we have a kind of a blanket motion authorizing the chair to sign the fair booth contract, the camper contracts, and sponsorships as they come in.
I'll move it.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, seconded by Kipling to authorize chair to sign the fair contracts as they are submitted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, those are the blanket ones, but then we have one, for a fair contract for the Sherwin-Linton.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Hanson, seconded by Kipling to approve the fair contract for Sherwin-Linton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have.
And we determined this morning that Sherwin-Linton is 79 years old.
Oh, wow.
Still performing well.
We say older than me.
Gary, do you have anything for us?
A couple things. The annual 4-H fruit sale is going to be going on at the Millen Building on Tuesday, March 20th, so they were just asking permission again to use the break room for their luncheon and things that day. If you don't have any concerns about that.
No.
Sounds good.
Works for me.
Born Group stopped by and they're going to have an open house on Wednesday, January 31st at 3:30. If any of you are interested in going and touring their facility.
That was who?
Born Group
Oh, Born.
for printing.
Okay.
That's what you-
And Wednesday, January 31st at 3:30 p.m. and I'll send a note out also.
Thank you.
And basically, they want to show us their facility and talk about the different things that they can provide for us. So we plan on that. And then I sent you a note about an insurance group that came to the sheriff's and want to discuss with their entire group, have some meetings. If you have no issue with them having meetings, there's no payroll deduction or anything that's needed, but basically it's an insurance that gives them $5,000 up front just for being a first responder and for life insurance, and they'd just like to have some meetings here if you have no concern.
Will it be during the courthouse hours?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem. As long as it's not extra.
What are you talking for meetings, one or two or several? Or
They haven't said specifically. They need to meet with each group between dispatch and sheriff, so it's going to take a few probably down in the community room.
They're just informational right now, just...
Yeah, and it gives them the choice to sign up or not, but there's no payroll deduction, so we don't have any involvement in it, so.
As long as it doesn't cost us anything.
Sounds good. That, I think we'll move on to the next item.
Jerry, I looked at my schedule, the 31st.
Okay,
I'm busy.
no problem.
Next item on the agenda, we have discussion regards to neighborhood assessment, and I guess Dennis Jones requested to be on the agenda.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hot seat.
What can we do for you this morning, Dennis?
Well, basically, I'm here in regards to this neighborhood issue, and I don't know much about taxes, but I know they should be spent wisely and collected fairly. Of course, this article came in the American News the last couple days, kind of woke up the county a little bit. I was not aware of this. And I've got some questions I'd like to ask you as commissioners, if I could, as to
Pull that chair.
how,
I guess 1 second, Dennis. I don't know if everybody was here just prior to, in between our first agendas. We had read a letter that was addressed to the Department of Revenue, and I don't know if everybody's familiar with that letter. Would you like me to read it again?
if you could.
Okay. We as commission have drafted a letter to the Department of Revenue, and the letter basically states that, Dear Mr. Howdy Shell, on behalf of the Brown County Commission and Brown County Equalization Office, we respectfully request that a review of methods used in assessing agricultural land in Brown County be examined by your department. We would especially be interested on your thoughts regarding neighborhood assessments. Thank you in advance for your consideration of our request, and we look forward to the evaluation report on behalf of Brown County and our citizens. So the commission has, due to this article, felt that it was necessary to bring the Department of Revenue, which controls what happens with assessments, and we want clarification also, just for everybody's understanding. I guess, we've looked at some statutes. I'm not an attorney. Chris can probably help us out on that. But, the statutes clearly say that neighborhoods are allowed, and I think Gene can probably answer that more than I can when we get into this. But now with that, just so everybody understands what the letter was, continue on, Dennis, if that helps you understand what we're trying to do here.
And I understand, the state of South Dakota passed a law, they made it a law that we're supposed to be on a productivity basis, and there has been some tweaking done afterward, after that law was passed.
That is correct.
And I guess one of the questions is that I've got, did you as commissioners approve this neighborhood concept?
Well, if they
We
did,
have.
it was probably prior to my time. I've only been on the board just 3 years, but
I don't remember ever hearing the word neighborhood per se, but each year Mary would come in and give her annual assessment report to us, and I asked questions, if we had questions, we could do that. But it's been done since 2010, go ahead, Gene, you had...
2010 is when the productivity started. That first year we did establish 2 neighborhoods. Starting in 2011, we established 3 neighborhoods. They followed these same neighborhood lines as we have now. We bring in an assessment plan every year for the commissioners to approve. It probably goes into a little more detail as far as neighborhooding and what happens every year when we have our township meeting, which we do on the Tuesday before township boards meet, and those township supervisors all know how we neighborhood and what neighborhoods they fall into and all of that also. So I know your township boards know it intimately. The commissioners are aware of it and have approved it.
The township board. Were you all aware of this neighborhood policy, though?
Yes,
You were.
I was.
I've never heard the word neighborhood, so no, I was not, I guess, but Mary never used that term.
Ag neighborhooding is fairly common practice, in most counties, most diverse counties. A lot of small counties don't neighborhood because there's really no difference from one side to the next, but we're from what the market is, the northern part of the county to the southern part of the county or middle part of the county. There's no way to make one top dollar fit a sales model that works and still is fair from one to the other. So we've neighborhooded since way before the productivity, when it was sales-based. We've neighborhooded for the 20 years I've been here.
Well, the state of South Dakota has said that sales don't work. It's one of the worst barometers there is, because of the fact that we have seen land yo-yo over the years and retract as much as 50%.
Sure.
And, I've talked to legislators, former legislators that passed this bill, and their full intent was to have productivity and productivity only based on the soil ratings. Soil ratings are constant. They do not change. Land values can change dramatically, and that's why they said it's a terrible barometer to use. And I talked to other counties that don't use neighborhooding at all. They have a lot of changes. I guess the question that I've got for you is, when you draw these lines out, can you explain to me what changes across the road on a township road? What changes? Can you, as commissioners, can you tell me what changes?
And I'm a licensed appraiser, so I have to be very careful of how I talk in here. But yes, I have seen it across county line. I have seen it across the road.
Across township lines?
I have seen it, especially in Brown County, because, Spink County has some of that too, where you can go in and you can see different areas. I'm trying to think of another county. Marshall has some, but not that great of a difference, or yeah.
Correct. It's hard to, the line is always the blurry point. It's easy to say land at Stratford versus land at Putney versus land at Barnard versus land at Elm Lake are different neighborhoods. Now, as a matter of where the line should be drawn, that's always the puzzle. Where should lines be drawn? And wherever you draw a line, somebody's on the wrong side. That transition from one to the next is always the hardest part. If you look at the map, our best soil and our highest sales do always run down through the center in here, and compare that to that, there's definitely a different neighborhood. Now, if that line is here, here, or here, that's a discussion that I'm, all in favor of having. That I'm not saying that line is perfect, and I'm not saying that it isn't something that can be tweaked. From our office, I don't want to split townships if I don't have to. So they do end up happening on township lines when we do neighborhood.
But you keep bringing up sales.
Dennis, I think under South Dakota codified law, would you like me to read that, what it states on there? That's kind of what the commission is kind of relying on, what codified law says. The codified law says the assessed value of agriculture and land may be adjusted by the following factors affecting productivity. The capacity of land to produce agricultural product as defined in 10.6.33.2, the location, size, soil survey statistics, terrain, topographical condition of the land, including the climate, accessibility, and surface obstructions. Each adjustment shall be documented. The Director of Equalization may document an adjustment by using data from sources reasonably related to the adjustment being made. In addition, the Director of Equalization may use data from comparable sales of agricultural land to document the adjustment concerning productivity for any other factors listed in this section. So sales under codified law are there. I mean, I understand you're saying it should be on productivity, but when that was tweaked, I think the legislator put some additional language in there. So to say that we don't have sales, when I read this, it says you can comparable sales. So that's why the commission is asking for the Department of Revenue to get clarification on this.
Okay.
Would that be something that everybody would be in agreement to? I mean, I'm not a trained assessor, but I think that's why we have to bring the state in, because they wrote the law.
See, it concerns me if you're using sales within a given area of these neighborhoods and not using them in other areas. It just seems like it's a very unnecessary thing to do when we know what soil ratings are. All land sales today are based on soil ratings. They're constant. They don't change. And I see no reason to use, I've talked to legislators, they said it's never worked. We used to use that method. It did not work. It was not indicative of the value of the land.
If their method was to solely go productivity, then they didn't write this law right. They should have taken out the sales aspect. Don't we use sales countywide? It's not just in certain
Yeah.
areas. It's the county,
It's
everybody.
countywide.
All those neighborhoods use sales, not just the high ones.
Okay, but I understand that was done after the fact. What the legislators I've talked to, that was done after the fact. They said, there was some political pressure to circumvent the law a little bit.
There's some pressure, probably not pressure. Sales are used to identify what limiting factors are. And sometimes location is a limiting factor, whether it be growing days, whether it be surface obstructions, terrain, access to obstructions, whatever. You do see that a .6 rated soil here that somebody's farming right through versus a .6 rated soil up north, or a 6 rated soil that's surrounded by a swamp that nobody can get to. The only way to show that that's 6 rated down here and that's 6 rated up there, the only way to identify that limiting factor is that suddenly you'll see that one doesn't sell for as much. What the sales does is tells you how you relate one area or one set of factors, whether it be terrain, whether it be crop rated soil that you can't get into to farm, so you pasture it. When those sales come up and you have a .8 rated crop rated soil here that somebody's farming and a .8 rated crop rated soil up here that's in a pasture that you can't get to, suddenly that market shows you that there's a difference in that same soil rating. And the only way to know how that affects one limiting factor to the other is see what that market tells you it does. Location is a same limiting factor as terrain, obstructions, access, and things like that. According to state law, they put that in and let us use that to compare one part of the county to another part of the county, whether it be location or obstructions or what have you.
I didn't know we're assessing location, but when you talk on sales, it's my understanding you can only use sales where two people have bid against each other, so you're not using all the sales across the county.
Use arm's length sales, whether they be two people that bid against each other, but you use sales that, in the audit, you use sales that are open sales that are arm's length transactions, so they'd be on open market with a willing buyer, willing seller. You do take into account all sales that identify a market value, and they can be family sales, things like that.
But I understand they can't be used.
They can't be used in the audit.
So
they certainly,
there's more sales that way than there are by auction.
Certainly. And a lot of those are obvious that they aren't at market value and what have you. But there's a lot of those that do
There's
come up.
some auction sales that aren't at market value either.
Certainly. Certainly.
I've got some other people that are here that I know that they have certain things they'd like to say and to be included in part of this, and I'd like them to introduce themselves. And why don't you guys take this seat, these two seats right now, because I don't want to totally, this is kind of a big issue, and this neighborhooding thing was such a surprise to people. I mean, transparency in government is very important today, and I was, I didn't know anything about it, and almost every producer that I talked to had no idea this was going on. But I'll have you guys You two.
I'll just make a quick comment. I know this was supposed to be
Could you introduce yourself, sir?
just a second, just for 10 minutes. I'm Roger Ricks, farm,
Okay,
north
thank
of
you.
Groton. Gene, know you well.
Yep.
Just got a couple quick comments. Talk about neighborhooding and sales and so forth. I understand all that. I've had several discussions with you and Mary Worley over the last 10 years about assessments and how they're derived. My problem is, again, with the neighborhooding, with productivity being the major factor that's supposed to be the valuation of the property, and Nancy noted that that when you're doing appraisal and so forth, that really has nothing to do with what, it really has not as much to do with as you would think with assessed valuation. My point is, when you have individual sales, particularly probably up in your country where you have people from New York or whoever coming in to buy hunting ground and so forth, those sales are outliers. And we all know that. The same thing in our country where we had those $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 land sales, those are outliers too when you have a doctor that comes in and I'm going to buy it for no matter what the sale is. I've had many discussions from our Seabright about this, and that $11,000, $12,000, $13,000, he said, that really wasn't a true value. Really, the value was $9,000. So right there, you're taking 25% off the top, and you guys are at 18% now. And we're looking right now at appraised values being in that $6,500 for that same ground that was $13,000. So we're talking 50% reduction. It's important to us to make sure that is, if neighborhooding it has to be done, these outliers have to be thrown out by your office. They have to be they can't even be considered. And when we have significant reductions like we're having right now, that has to be considered too. Immediately, not 5 years from now when 10 of us show up and we're pissed.
Well, the problem with the significant reductions that are going on right now
Yep.
is that we're in an 8-year cycle.
Mhm.
That was
I understand
assessments are
that,
set.
but have you made those adjustments yet?
We were at the top, and actually, had we been at the top last year, it would have come down. This year, that top value did move up 4%. That slug is going to come through, whatever that is, 2012, 13, 14 is going to be those high-end ones.
Those outlier sales, were they thrown out or were they used?
They're not even in the, as far as neighborhooding?
Mhm.
As far as, they are in the mix, but they're part of,
There hasn't been a lot of land sales really.
no, there's,
So they give you,
There hasn't
they
been-
give you a skewed perception of what the values
correct.
are.
But the neighborhoods that we've developed have been, aren't looking over 1 or 2 or 3 years. They're pretty much historic neighborhoods that we
I understand the neighborhooding, but I guess my argument is more about the values you use for the neighborhooding. Because when you got an individual that sells his practice of beer and comes in and has got millions of dollars he has to get rid of, that's an outlier that should not even be considered. Or somebody comes in from New York to buy hunting ground and pays twice what the value is, that they should even be considered. Because that's not productivity.
That's not productivity, but it is still,
If their cousin or their son-in-law or whatever lives there to farm, yes it does. We aren't going to argue about it. That's my point. Wayne, you asked for a line of people to come in and, one of the articles in the paper, line up and show our concern. Well, I think the line started, so.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you.
I guess we just wanted to show concern. I'm Al Reichman, but just want to make sure that the factor is a fair factor if it's needed in the first place. To me, the soil rating's kind of already, like our Stratford area, forgot that was mentioned, our soil ratings are higher, so even if there was no factors, we would still pay more than the other people would. But do we need a surcharge? I mean, maybe we do. I don't know what's fair. I just want it to be fair, but I also want you to know we are concerned about it. Well, I appreciate all you coming in, and I think one of the things that, it isn't the commission that controls this thing 100%.
I
Department of Revenue is
understand.
involved somewhat too. And I guess, you know, the Department of Revenue says your ag land in Brown County has to be assessed for X amount of dollars, and this is what they look at. Well, if it's assessed for X amount of dollars, and you take the 118%, and the state says you have to have this number here, when we move yours down to 100%, guess what's going to happen to the Northland? That's going to go up to 100%. Is it the same land? That's the thing everybody can beg to differ on. I mean, is the land the same value in Frederick as it is in Stratford? Probably not. But if the state says you will bring us this many dollars in off your ag land, what do we do? I mean, do we raise yours 7 and theirs 12? I mean, how do you get to that number the state's requesting us to get to?
Well, that is one concern I do have. Are we actually above what the state's requiring? Is the state requiring between 95 and 100, or it used to be 85 and 100 of the grade?
Well, of market value, right? We're supposed to be, the 85 and 100 is one of those market values, and right now 85 and 100 of non-ag is still what we use. Right now, productivity is the model we have, so market's really thrown out as far as what percentage of full and true or what percentage of sales are you using. The state's given us a top dollar of
3620.
3620 this year, and an
State
average,
sets that number?
state sets that number, and the state says that we are to be an average countywide
226906.
of 226906 per acre across about 1 million acres of ag land.
That's the average.
That would be the average countywide on a macro level, with the whole shooting match. So if you do bump one portion above or do raise the value of one, and you don't raise the value of another, or you don't lower the value correspondingly, you don't hit that average. Or if you lower that and don't raise the other part correspondingly. The thing that comes into play then from our perspective
You give it to Dennis.
Give it to Dennis.
is if the state realizes that we're at 100% of productivity number, which is at 2690 per acre average, it says we're at a 1.0 rating, which means they're going to give us a 0.85 market factor to adjust our tax to our assessed value to our taxable value. That market factor on ag applies to your ag land and your ag buildings. So if we drop that to someplace below 100%, say 85%. So say we've got the top at a 1 and the bottom at 0.75, which gives us an overall rating according to the state of 85%. So our average doesn't come to 2690. Say it comes to 1980 or something. Suddenly that ag multiplier we get won't be a 0.85. It'll be somewhere closer to a 1 or something like that. And then what happens is that 15% reduction that doesn't get applied to your ag land also doesn't get applied to your ag buildings, which would be large bin sites, Hooterville Colony, things like that, that suddenly you're going to see however many millions of dollars of ag buildings that aren't going to see that same reduction that they do get if we raise our county to a point where we do hit that average dollar per acre.
So how close are we to?
With what I have now, I am at 26, I'm within 7 cents an acre average, 7 cents an acre to what their county average is. If I put the top at a 1 and the bottom at a 0.85, I'm within about, well, I'm about $50 an acre short. Now, probably more than that. Probably about $150 an acre short, meaning that I'm that much short of being 100% of the full and true, which means I won't get a 0.85 multiplier. I might get something closer to a 0.95 or a 0.92, which actually puts your ag land at the exact same place. Either I'm at 100% and lower it to 85, or I'm at 85 and I don't lower it at all. What that does, though, if I don't lower it at all, is if you got a $600,000 egg shop, that doesn't get lowered with your farmland as it does as if I'm at 100% and lower at 15%.
So my goal, I really try to to hit that county average at 2690, just to make sure, yeah, if you got $10,000 or $12,000 with the egg buildings, that's probably not a big deal if you don't get the 15% reduction. But we got some farmers out there with $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $1 million worth of egg buildings that if they suddenly don't get that 15% reduction, and yet their egg land lands at the same place, one way or the other, that becomes a player in the discussion.
Well, there's a lot of that. I'll come up this time, unless you want to go, Chris.
I'm here to learn a lesson.
Well, I think I scared everybody with all the literature I got. As I come forward, I think a year ago, I sat at this chair, Rachel, and you was chairperson, and I think the discussion at that time is our productivity numbers, our crop value was going down and our taxes would go up. I think was the main discussion that I came in, and Chair Kipley at that time, then I just came in to say, yeah, but Brown County's been behind on their productivity level until last year, and they finally caught up. We had 25% value increases in ag land or crop land for 4 or 5 years, and I think the last year was 15. They're not probably going to hit it exactly, and this year we're at full production. Then I think the comment or the question came from Chair Kipley and says, well, what can we do to lower taxes? And I think in Brown County, and I know in my township, about 90% of my tax dollar, and this is a valuation discussion, but that goes to set your taxes. In my township, I think 90% of our tax dollars go to school and county, roughly. School is 70% and county is 25, in that area. It varies. So the only way you can lower taxes is cut budgets. And I think just a year or 2 years ago, the state raised taxes to fund teachers. If you want to cut taxes, you got to cut teacher salaries, because 70% of my tax dollar goes to school and 80% of that dollar goes to employees. I don't know what your breakdown is in your county, but you gave your county employees a raise. I'm not against it. But you can't cut taxes if you're going to give raises. So let's go back to the valuation discussion. I was in Pierre when all this took place. A little history 101, I hate to get too long, but we was using market. But we had a caveat in the market that said anything that was sold for 150% of its value, the sale was throughout. So we had a group of legislators that wanted to get rid of that. If they'd have got rid of that and we'd have brought in, and I know Roger talked about the $13,000 sale, that was bought strictly to farm. I agree that was an extreme sale. Bring in sales, I hate to bring it back in, but we're not using that sale to value ag land. What happened is a senator by the name of Jim Lentz that lives in Custer area, his ag land was selling for 1,000% over the market value. I mean, the sales, because of just what Roger brought up. He was a prime sponsor of the bill to use productivity. I did not like the idea to start with, but I got on board. Because if we would have, there was a bill to repeal the 150 rule. They had repealed that 150 rule and not made any changes in the way we value ag land. Was you still there then?
Yep.
The way we value ag land, they would have brought those arm length sales in. They would have brought the $13,000 sale in. They would have brought the $8,000 sales in, because the 150 rule was going away. So the legislature and Jim Lentz worked on it, and I was in on it a little bit, and we come up with the productivity model, and it starts basically, as Mr. Jones said, it's based off of the soil survey, which is constant. But to start, the way it started was the productivity model, gross production for 8 years Olympic average, they throw out the high and low, average the other 6. And right now, I think currently, correct me if I'm wrong, Gene, the gross sales in Brown County is $495 an acre. That's the base that they start with. Then the formula goes through and comes up with Gene's number and says that Brown County has to have this many dollars of valuation to fit, otherwise we lose or, put on. I was involved in, I'm going to say, every amendment that was put to that bill for neighborhooding and or local adjustments. Rachel, you said the word neighborhooding was never used to your knowledge. I could forgive you probably, but I think you heard the word local adjustments. Neighborhooding is local adjustments. As Gene said, and I've been to 2 or 3 of them in March, every township official, I think, about was there and knew that this was going on. Whether Dennis didn't know it or Roger, I don't know. I knew it. I get the same printout I asked, but I guess I've been following this for 25 years. The bill was tweaked and probably made some local adjustments. There's a laundry list, which Doug, you read, and what they can use. If a 6-rated soil in Cambria Township is the same as a 6-rated soil in Westport Township, you got problems. Westport Township has got rocks, they got gumbo, and all those other issues. So, according to Dennis, we should just use the soil survey. But by him saying that, then, is a 9-rated soil in Cambria Township, should it be valued the same as a 9-rated soil in Minnehaha County? No. And it isn't today. Minnehaha has got a higher number than 495. I have supported the productivity model, and I'm sure I supported every one of the amendments as they were put on to give the directors of equalization tools in their toolbox to make adjustments. Mary has talked to me when that first neighborhood map come out. I think I got one in my briefcase. That was 2011. And I didn't disagree with her on neighborhood. I disagreed with her on where she drew the line. Because I'm going to use Brainerd Township, borders Sand Lake, Jim River Valley. For 3 miles west of the Jim River or Sand Lake, it's excellent land, probably these 8 land to 9 land. There's a swale lemon and then it comes up and you're at Barnard. She does not split Brainerd Township. And I have said to, and probably Garland should be split too. I have said to Mary several times, you should split township. That's a disagreement I had. Gene just brought up the fact that maybe we should draw some more lines if we're in the neighborhood. Every township is a mini-state, and every mini-county, and every county is a mini-state. But using Dennis's concept only as soil survey, I'll guarantee you a 7-rated soil in Meade County does not have the same value as a 7-rated soil in Brown County or Minnehaha County. His concept is they should have all the same value. And it can't be. Does rainfall come in? Meade County has got a soil number problem. I don't know, I'd have to get my sheet out and look. Meade County's is probably a 7-rated soil, might be 360. Minnehaha might be 800, to that number they base off. So I have supported neighborhooding, I've been there, and I've got friends in the eastern part of Brown County and the western part of county, and Gene brought up the fact, and you too, Doug, that if you lower that value in Cambria, you're going to raise it in Westport. There's no question about it. Mary, in her previous history, has decided to use neighborhoods and make some local adjustments and move forward. So, my comment a week ago when I picked up the paper and I called Rachel, thank you Rachel, called me right back, I was really disappointed. I was really disappointed that we had a director of equalization that said Mary went against the law. You all know she didn't. She did neighborhood.
and the director said that this was affecting school funding. He is 100% wrong. I don't care what you do with the value of Brown County, either in Frederick or Westport or Groton. It did not affect the school districts one penny. Because whatever the local effort brings in, if it doesn't meet the whole criteria, the state makes up the difference. So we had a director that sat in that office that didn't understand the law, and he didn't understand school funding. I told Rachel, I think you did the right thing, and let him resign. I was really disappointed that the newspaper printed that article without verification. That's where my disappointment came. So I called Rachel, and of course Dennis called me. We've had, and we had a good discussion. We disagree, you know. But if I'm going to sit here and say to Dennis, let's not neighborhood, I've got friends in Westport that are going to say, oh, let's go back to the drawing board then. So that's where I'm at it, and I follow about 6-8 different parcels of land. I got a briefcase full of their taxes, and we finally caught up. One other thing, I'll make a comment, and I'm going to quit, is all land in Brown County. That article stated that it was costing Brown County, or basically $1 million more. Until last year, all land in Brown County was not at full productivity. And that tax savings, that being not at productivity, had to be spread over the rest of Brown County and the rest of the state, because we was not at full productivity. We finally hit it. Let's not throw it all out now. Let's see how it'll work from now on. 2 counties are not at productivity. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul.
And I want to be involved, hopefully, in a positive way for my friends in Cambria and my friends in Westport.
I think you made one misstatement. Our former assessor was not resigned. We had terminated him, so he was fired. So, just so you know, and just so you understand, is when you're hiring somebody, the interview doesn't always appear as what you get. And if anybody of you are in business, we thought we probably had the right person, but as things went on, we realized it was not, so it was dismissed. And we as a commission would like to apologize for his misstatements. I don't know what law he was reading, where he was at. But are you correct in saying maybe there are some changes? Maybe there should be, but we're not the ones to do it. The Department of Revenue has to give us guidance of what happens. And, you know, I don't know if you can have 5 neighborhoods in Brown County, or if you have 2 neighborhoods in Brown County. What's the right call? I mean, anybody that can answer that?
Or do you need any?
Well, you know, and that's food for thought, but I don't know that through these statements that our ex-assessor made, is that the uprising it's probably caused it's probably alarm, but I don't think the system's broke. I think it brings up some good points.
I totally agree, Doug. That's why, because we've hit full productivity. And I hate to even bring it up, but, you know, the comment talks about these markets. Right now, we've had very few appeals of our value. Why would a landowner that knows his land is worth $8,000 complain if the taxable value is $3,200? That's my comment.
Well, the benefit of this is it's causing us to ask more questions.
Yeah.
And I
Well, thank
think
you for
everyone
your
around
time,
the
and
table is
please
the first
call me.
to admit that we're not experts when it comes to
Thank
this.
you for your comment.
And I've
Paul.
never been a
Thank
fan
you.
of the productivity model, and I know that that's what we've been given by the state, and we gotta roll with it, but at least at this point, we can see, are there other options out there? Is there a way to tweak the rules that we're under? And we're having those conversations, and we'll get more information from the state, so thank you guys for coming.
One of the things we bring up soil, you know, I also farm in Campbell County, which is the desert out there. You all realize how dry it can get out there. And you got soil rating 6, 6.5, 7 out there. But it does not sell for what our 6, 7.5 cent land does here, because you know what the problem is? Moisture. We just can't get the rains to finish the crop off out there. So should that land be valued the same as Brown County? The productivity probably shows that, because it's less productivity out there, but if the soil samples are the same, or the soil ratings are the same, I don't believe you can say that land's worth the same, because there's a factor involved there.
Could I respond to that a little bit, though? I talked to a lot of agronomists, And there's two sides to that argument. They're saying that we're seeing better production on less rainfall than we ever have. And so those areas that we say are too dry, sometimes they're saying is that the good land that gets more rainfall sometimes gets hurt by yield. The thing that is, are we going to continue to assess rainfall? I didn't know that rainfall was part of our assessment plan. Are we going to continue to argue in 10 years from now that we've got to tweak this and tweak that? Because this whole thing what you're talking about is going to stay political until we change it to the way it should be changed, and that's productivity. Because I've heard today that maybe the lines need to be changed. Maybe things aren't right. We would have no problems whatsoever just going on the productivity. It'd be status quo. It would not change, and we would not have politics enter in and this tweaking. So we're going to tweak for the next 20 years, and we're going to wonder what is going to be the next thing to come out. I don't think that's what the state of South Dakota intended.
But that's what they've set up, so until something changes in legislature and gives the counties direction on how they want it, I mean, we're basically following a guideline. And you're thinking neighborhoods aren't proper. They say we can use them. So is that our call, or how do we get to our production that they're saying you have to have this many dollars out of Brown County? How do we get there under this guideline? And
the question is, though, do you need neighborhoods? There's a certain stigma to them, I think. I think it's a real stigma, more than what you people realize. And when you've got one area that's a neighborhood that is taxed at a higher percentage rate for maybe some gray areas there, 'cause today we couldn't agree on all this that you're doing. We couldn't even agree today.
Gene, you were going to add something?
And like I said, neighborhooding, I mean, there's an obvious neighborhood from one to the other, and the boundaries are where the issue is. One thing I know is that if I do change the boundaries to neighborhoods, we're going to have a parade of taxpayers in again because something changed. It's one up,
Definitely
one
will.
down. Yeah, definitely will. Just like when we took the mall off to begin with in 2010, when we first started this over again, we had pages and pages and pages of appeals come in that first year. We had the north end of the county wanted our director to resign and be decertified, and that whole shooting match. You know, went through a state investigation and all of that, and it was found to be okay. You know, if I change that line, if I move a township north or a township east or whatever it is, you know, it'll affect things, and it will have an effect on that particular township, and I'll probably have appeals from the entire township. There's some townships that, you know, what neighborhood they belong in. Groton Township, probably a boundary one. Brainerd's another one. Should that middle tier jump up and hit Greenfield and Richland? Kind of seeing some things that can maybe, you know, defend that argument. But another thing is, as soon as you make a change to what have been historic neighborhoods, you know, I'm going to have, you know, 100 people in here again. And that's fine. If that's what it needs to be, that's, you know, we'll look at it. And I looked at these again this year to see where we should be, how close should that gap be. And we did change a couple of northern neighborhoods. We did bump them a little bit. I did close that gap just a little bit, and in the future I may close a little more. In the future I may see that some of those townships maybe should change into the other, you know, maybe Groton should move out of that and move into the middle range. Maybe, you know, maybe Aberdeen's got to move into one or the other. Maybe, you know, maybe like I said, South Detroit should move into, or North Detroit should move into, you know, one or the other. I guess those boundary neighborhoods are always the ones that are in question. Where do you draw the line? And wherever you draw it, you always got it in the wrong spot. But sales themselves do show you that there is, you know, from the extreme to the extreme, that there definitely is that 0.8 here and that 0.8 there, whether it be because of productivity or access or whatever it is, whatever limiting factors there are do come into play. And I don't use them to set assessments. I use them to set relationships within the county. And you know,
Are you doing the same in the other neighborhoods?
in the other
Using sales?
all across every sale that comes through, it gets platted on a map. You see what the indicated top dollar is. If a 0.6,
Are you using it though?
yes, you use it to justify where your neighborhoods belong. You know, so if say a 0.6 comes in here and sells for $6,000, that indicates that the top dollar should be $1,000 or $10,000. If a 0.6 up here sells for $4,000, that indicates that that top dollar should maybe be at $7,500. That shows you that your top dollars, there's a 25% difference from one to the other. I look at where they are all over the state, or all over the county, and make sure that that trend fits. You know, whether, you know, wherever it belongs to. And right now, the last 2 years, I do have some that show me that Greenfield, Richland, you know, maybe should be bumped into a higher neighborhood. And there may be a point where I have to tweak where those lines go. And that may come into play here real soon. It would be a matter of where.
See, this is what gets me. Are we going to tweak the rest of our life?
Well,
And
But Dennis, it can be tweaked the second Tuesday of every year.
yeah,
In the legislative
they're an annual, assessments are set annually.
And I think it
but
has.
that's the state of South Dakota that.
But they're directing what the county has to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, I mean, you can
But
say
it-
you're gonna take politics out of it, but the second Tuesday, politics come back into play.
Assessments are set
It
new
can.
every year. You know, we can change every year.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with that.
Okay. And as far as the soil survey, soil survey was done in the early 80s. Our table that goes with it was done in the 90s. The soils stay the same, but conditions change. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if land held some water, it was probably producing the best corn in the county, and right now, if it holds some water, it's growing the best cattails in the county. And we have done some tweaking for that. We've made some adjustments through the Jim River bottom, through Mansfield Slough, up through Mud Creek, for some of those sales some of those parcels that have 0.8 rated soils that are growing nothing but cattails. In 15 years, when it's dry, those may be our best soils again. And then that 0.8 maybe should be a 0.8 instead of a 0.8 that's adjusted. As assessors, we're supposed to look at everything every year and make sure it comes in, you know, fits.
I understand it. As far as from the Department of Revenue, when you hear from them, will that be transparent for the whole county to see what they are?
I think it
Yes.
should be.
That's why we're doing it. The commission isn't out to hide anything, such as the paper stated. You know, the problem I have with this is when we're public officials, and we try to do the best job with our taxpayers' dollars, but when you have blogs that call us arrogant, idiots, good old boys club, I mean, it runs rapid. And I don't think any of us deserve it. I mean, it's not like we set this up to try to offend somebody. We're doing the best job we can by what we're given by the state. You know, and I guess that's my piece, you know. And you had a question, sir?
Well, I was just going to make the point, we farm in Allison Township, which is probably one of the worst townships for farm ground, and we also farm in East Rondell, which is one of the better. And, you know, I will make the comment that the taxes are probably 3 times as much in East Rondell as they are in Allison Township. there's more things change in your productivity level than just rainfall and everything. Hybrids have come to the point to where they have changed so much. They will help. In the last 10 years, the poorer land is becoming more productive, and the better land is also becoming more productive. For probably the increase is helping the poorer land better, and I've seen it. You know, things are changing other than just, you know, in all reality, if you're looking at just yields and total return on return per acre, we've probably had a bigger increase with our return in Allison Township than we have in East Rondell Township because of the improvement that the hybrids can handle the stress.
Yeah, and actually I don't disagree with you. And like I stated before, this year I did close that gap a little bit, and maybe that gap needs to be, you know, fall to the center even a little more. And I do see sales as we're getting north up into Richland and Greenfield Township, and things are starting to maybe bubble a little closer to that center. That's why we look at sales in every neighborhood, Greenfield, Richland, you know, all the time. But that's also why when this came out in 2010, why every parcel on Allison Township came down to appeal their property. Because we didn't have any neighborhoods, or we were treating them the same as the rest of the county. And we had every parcel up there.
I've been in Allison Township farming for all those years, and I've seen the improvements of the hybrids have done, and they've improved Allison a lot.
Yeah.
Do we have
Good luck with that.
Do we have any other questions before the commission at this time? We're running behind our schedule.
Comment though before you break. It refers to taxes. And when this all started, and I'm going to just say the Chamber of Commerce was in South Dakota, this is something I tried to mention to Dennis last night. They said, you know, ag is putting 18.6% of the school general fund, ag is funding that portion of the budget. The powers that be, and I could mention some names from the chamber and some of the cities, said, by God, we're going to pass a bill that makes sure that ag is going to keep putting 18.6% of the dollars in the school general fund budget. And when I seen that bill, I said to myself, this is the best bill I could ever vote for. Because their thought was all the ag values was going to go down when we started this. And then ag wouldn't be putting 18.6 in. Do you know that within 2 years that same group of people has talked about repealing that law? Because what have ag values did? When we started this, the productivity or the gross return, I'd have to go back and look, but I'm going to throw out a figure of our gross return in Brown County was under $400 an acre. Maybe one year it was even in the 2 range. And I sat there in Pierre at that time, and I said to the committee, if my son or these two gentlemen do not gross $400 per acre plus, they're going to be broke in a few years. But yet that group thought that our values was going to go down, and we're going to make sure ag puts in that 18.6. Instead of talking, we're talking today, we better all be watching what the legislature does this session. 10% of the legislature is ag producers, or less. Does it take many people to repeal a law or change that 18.6 to open it up? You talk about your taxes changing, and this is a valuation discussion, but that was the best bill I ever voted for in my 20 years in the legislature. It could change anytime soon. Just want to call you people's attention to that. You're probably worried about things, and I know you are, and they brought up, if you lower this land over here, you're going to raise the land in Allison. Or maybe it should be closer. I'm sitting in the middle. I'm 97. I have no dog in the fight, really. and my soil rating is the average soil rating. In the 70s, 71, 69, 71. Don't worry about them little things. Worry about the bigger picture, and that's the second Tuesday of January.
Well, I think just so everybody knows, the commission wants to be open about it. I think if any of you have questions, I think any one of us, not that I'd have the answers, but I will check for the answers for you. Just as long as you know that we as a commission do not control this this ride. We have a little bit of input, but we're governed heavily by the Department of Revenue. And I appreciate your concerns, and like I said, all we can do is see where it ends up from here, but the main thing is that there was a lot of false accusations, like Paul stated in the paper, and unfortunately, if you got a disgruntled employee, sometimes it happens.
Thanks for listening to us.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Hey,
Gene.
Craig.
Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Anytime.
Thanks, Paul.
And I'm a pain in the butt, I know.
Yeah, but you're our favorite.
But we appreciate you.
And then you gotta remember it.
I guess I was there.
Gary's out there saying
I feel a little obligation to look at it. And I've always said, double my assessment or cut it in half. We'll still pay the same tax. I want them to be fair.
And if you use the worksheet that we get from the Department of Revenue,
I get it.
it's not as simple as just using productivity.
I know.
Here's the formula.
That's what they
Yep.
don't understand, and I even have trouble.
Exactly.
Morning, Derek, sorry, we ran you a little late.
But I have been exposed to it for
Yep.
25 years.
My deal to Mr. Dennett, I don't mind that at all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
How we doing?
We're
Good,
great.
how are you?
We're moving along, we fixed the world, now we're on to you.
Yeah.
Please make public that in the state. I put a call in the hottie show.
Up to them.
No, but I didn't get him at it.
Yeah.
Maybe a special meeting should be called or something. There will be a March meeting, though, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Derek Ritchie.
How are you doing?
Bear, what do you have for us today, Derek?
All right, well, we'll shorten it up a bit. I had 4, we'll go to 2, because I don't want to push you down too much. Wanted to make everybody aware of a situation that occurred a little bit after the first of the year. We realized that the browncountyfair.com domain did not work. So upon some research, we found that the domain was hosted, and we'll use that term kind of loosely because it was more of an auto-forward, but technically the word hosted is accurate, but it was more of an auto-forward. We found that there was a transfer after a couple of days research that goes back to 2010 that actually transferred the assets away from what appears to be the county. Originally, when the registration was created, and I'll pass this around, this is an actual email from the original hosting company back in 2010, which would be GoDaddy. It was originally registered, and think of the registrant for a website as the deed owner of a house. All right, so in the case of real estate, the deed controls the ownership of the house. In terms of website, I'm sorry. In terms of websites, the registrant would be the owner of that domain name or that URL name. So this is a snapshot. This should just be one card. So back in 2010, the history was it was the organization and the address and the city and state generally control the ownership. So at this point, the person that's listed there was a consultant that was being used at the time, as far as I'm aware. But the original organizational registrant was the Brown County Fair. You'll see the Market Street address, you'll see the city, state, and zip. It was transferred in 2011. We did find a copy of an email correspondence that goes back to November, outlining conversation between this person and the current fair manager at that time. And the current fair manager is asking, what is this? Because the request came through and was forwarded over to us. What is this? How does it work? Originally it was presented as that's part of the normal transfer process of moving it from one company hosting a website to another company hosting a website. That is not an accurate statement. So we're challenging this with ICANN, which is basically for all practical purposes, the legislative body for all website domain registrations. Because technically, we're making our argument that that asset was owned by the fair, not by the individual. So, because there was some information that happened that was transferred at that time that was not completely accurate. What we're trying to figure out now is this particular person that shows up on that sheet, did they know that that was not the case, or were they being told by the hosting company? The transfer in 2011 is the hosting company that was advising this is part of a normal transfer protocol, which is usually not the case. Because you wouldn't transfer your ownership at that point. It would be like having switching real estate agents and then putting their name on the deed of the house instead of yours, to kind of put that in comparison.
So that's kind of where we sit today. So that's going to be a longer-term process. That review period can take anywhere from 6 months to a year. We'll have to register a temporary domain for now because we have basically lost any of that.
Just shut the door for we
Oh,
could hear
sure.
a little bit better.
Sorry about that.
Is it feasible to continue on this road, or do we try to just set up new?
If it takes 6 months, it would be feasible. We're going to have to set up new anyway, but it's going to cost us a substantial amount of money to get all of that history and that transfer and those rankings that we'll essentially lose without having that redirect. So we're going to have to do it anyway. It's just a matter of we'll know in 3 to 4 months whether we have a shot at it or not. It's a 50-50 shot at this point because their argument that they're going to make is that they were the ones in charge of doing it. If we didn't have the email, we would have no shot. But having that email, it looks like it was questioned on our side as to why are we doing this, what's the value of doing this. And we've been communicating with IT too as well, and as far as the historicals.
So, just a ballpark figure, what's it gonna cost us?
Well, we've been paying roughly $500 a year for an auto forward, so we've probably got $2,000 into the project, even though they're not really hosting it. It's probably going to cost us. You mean to challenge it,
Don't you?
or just to
Yeah, to get it back to.
It'll probably cost about $1,000. That's just for the acquisition, the uploading, the onboarding, building of the frames, again, to forward that over. Plus, we'll also have to do more advertising online and more ad posting to develop those forwards, if you will. It's kind of like when you have a friend that refers, let's say, a tax service. If all of a sudden you just close your doors and you've moved but you don't tell anybody where you're at, you know, it kind of takes you that whole cycle to get back up again. Same kind of problem.
Okay.
So, to be continued. But I wanted to make you aware of the situation in case anybody goes to the website and...
Well, I suspect it would be important. We don't want to be...
goes to Wisconsin. So he sold it already, okay.
BrownCountyFair.com, it's Brown County, Wisconsin.
The Brown County Fair
Oh.
is the URL.
I just typed in Brown
So
County.
we would prefer to have this
Yeah.
done closer before our fair is in process, because that has a bearing on
Ticket sales.
ticket sales and publication and advertisement and whatever it be, so...
We're going to have to go on this in 30 days.
Yeah.
Because tickets will go on sale at some point within the next 30 days, so. We're trying to work on resolution. None of his contact information works. His phone numbers don't work. His emails don't work. We sent a letter before asking to change the registrar database, and that went unanswered. So all we have basically is just a physical address for him at this point, assuming he still lives at that address. So. To be continued. Chris has been a huge help, though, as far as letting us know what we can do, what we can't do.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense practically to do that. All right, that's that one. That's easy enough. So I just wanted to make you aware, because we did make the board aware on Wednesday, so I didn't want anybody else to not be aware.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I'm going to pass this out.
We need one more.
One more. The board has decided to move in a different direction. After further review, we compiled that analysis over the last 3 years. The board has chosen to move on from the Christian night and set up a different type of entertainment. They have chosen to create a rock night. The reason being is that you'll look at those numbers over a 3-year trend line, you'll see that the losses have been mounting at a greater and more successive rate. Over the course of the 3 years, that particular event, even when we scale for music and videos and things of that nature, we're probably looking at somewhere in the vicinity of 31,000, give or take, when you add everything together. The feeling was that we were going to try to continue it, but there were 2 other factors that occurred that made that impossible. You'll notice on the second section where it outlines the cost of the artists. Historically, those artists have taken a lower guarantee and then a back-end percentage. Well, we've never hit those back-end percentages. So now, what's happened at that point is with 3 years in a row of not hitting those percentages and not getting close, they're now going back to their original guarantee rate, which is anywhere between 15 and 20,000 higher. So when you add that to the already existing performance of that night, unfortunately, the finances are telling us and the facts are telling us that it's not viable to continue.
Makes sense to me.
Yep, Monday.
We're getting shorter on the handouts,
Numbers speak for themselves.
so
Yeah.
I just wanted to make you aware
At
of that.
least we gave it a try,
We did.
and it was not met by the,
The general public was, was not able to support it at the level needed to continue.
And
And
your
it's
thoughts,
unfortunate.
rock night on which night would be?
Friday. It has to be Friday just because, Friday or Saturday, but the danger to Saturday is that that's one of our highest days. Where Friday, given the fact that you have a higher than normal group that is blue collar or trade in nature that follows that format. Wednesday or Thursday doesn't make sense because you're going to be back in the same position.
So what are your thoughts on Wednesday night then?
We'll do country. So we'll just back the country up 2 days. We'll still do 3 nights of country, so it'll be Wednesday country, Thursday country, Friday rock, Saturday country. So
are
we'll
we
still
pretty
preserve the
well
package.
lined up with, ready for ticket sales, or?
That is an ever-evolving process.
Okay,
Um,
I've just,
Yep,
that's fine?
we have two more offers that went through. One looks like we should get confirmation on that here in the next couple of days, and then now we're just looking at that last day, so.
Okay, that's fine, I just was wondering, how we were...
And we can go into executive, we
No,
want to
I'm
go into
fine.
some more detail, which we can do, so.
I think when you get them lined up, that'd be the time you want to come,
Yeah.
just kind of give us a heads up at that time.
We're definitely closer than we were 2 weeks ago, so.
Okay. Appreciate that.
No worries, I appreciate it, guys. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Derek.
Thanks.
Thank
Eric.
you.
We
Thank
did
you
get
for
the
waiting.
clubhouse contract signed back and
Okay.
today.
Perfect. So we'll be review on that as well?
Sign that, and then do it. Thank
So do we
Okay.
countersign the date down here, or?
That would be,
That's
I think we're about done.
oh, that's just the day that he signed it.
That's
So
the
you have-
day he signed it, doesn't matter, it's gonna be effective today. I mean, the contract's gonna be,
I'm just saying for historical purposes.
but well, you did very well.
I just don't think I incriminated anybody, but sometimes you
I
never
think-
know that.
I think there's only... And I'll get you...
Okay, thank you.
Anything on this yet?
Because we still have to wait for that one more.
You probably never
Okay.
To determine
No,
which...
it never has, never will. All right, thanks, but that's okay. It's provided information.
I think we have all our agenda items done. Max, do you have anything else for us? Gary?
Just need a quick exec for legal.
Yeah.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Hanson to go into exec. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna take a 1-minute break.
Yeah.
Can I take a 1 minute?
Yeah, let's have just a couple minute break, and I can use one also.
I think I have it.
Okay, better flip your buttons for it today.
Okay, I'll repeat that. We're officially out of exec, no action resulted in executive session. Do we have anything else before the Brown County Commission today? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Hanson, second by Sutton to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Shannon, I like your hair.